We're going to talk off-season winners and losers on today's video. We've done the winners and losers segment periodically before when OTAs came around and mini camp, but now I want to look at the entire off-season, right? From the day the season ended, through free agency, through the draft, through all the spring practices. Who comes out smelling the best? So my first winner in the off-season, I'll go with Deshaun Watson. I think this one is just purely motivated and fueled by the fact that Deshaun Watson has made really good progress on his injury and his rehab recovery. From getting shoulder surgery November 21st to throwing on the first day of OTAs May 21st, there were a lot of quarterbacks coming off season-ending injuries this year. Not all of them were throwing on the first day of OTA. Some of them were throwing with their left hand. I won't say who, but you might know who that is. For Watson to be that far in his recovery, this early in the calendar, it's super encouraging, not just for him to be on the field for week one, but that he'll be ready for week one. Like, he'll actually be useful and serviceable compared to, like, last year, for example. Joe Burrow, sure, he played week one. Did anyone think that Joe Burrow was at 100% last year, week one against us? No, of course not. I don't want Watson to look like Burrow in week one of 2023. Now, Andrew Berry was recently on the NFL Insider show with like Ian Rappaport and the rest of that crew, and they talked about Watson. And I want to share with you guys what Berry had to say on June 17th. First and foremost, Deshaun has really worked his tail off during the rehabilitation process over the last several months. He's really actually ahead of schedule. Honestly, if you didn't know he got hurt last year, you really wouldn't be able to tell the difference. We're very excited once camp starts. I've said this before, and so I know some of you have heard this speech, but if you're just kind of tuning in now, I think it's really important for Watson to start training camp healthy. There's a handful of reasons why. One, he's got a new offensive coordinator in Ken Dorsey. I don't want him to fall behind in the new offensive install and start playing catch up and have that bleed into the regular season. There's already going to be a little bit of growing pains with a new play caller potentially and just a new OC altogether, but I want to limit the damage as much as possible. Next, from a historical standpoint, Watson has gotten off to slow starts in his NFL career. Look at his career stats in the first 4 games of the season of his entire NFL career put together versus the following 4 games of his entire NFL career. I mean, the guy's 7-12 in his first 4 games of his career versus 12-5 in games 5 through 8. Touchdowns up, interceptions, like he has been much better in games 5 through 8 versus games 1 through 4. And he's played in more games 1 through 4 than 5 through 8. So in order to curb as much of that slowness that Watson has to starting the year, getting him out there for the first day of training camp, I think can only help. Now, one question I do want to ask everyone here, and we've asked it before, but I always love to get everyone's opinion on these things. Who do you think will have a better 2024 season? Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson? It is peak sports analyst quarterback ranking season, where the Colin Cowards of the world put out their quarterback rankings, and all of them have Deshaun Watson somewhere between like 17 and 25. And a lot of them have him right behind Russell Wilson. I'm picking Deshaun Watson this season. I want to know who you're picking below. Now, my first loser is someone that I feel like I have been picking on throughout much of the spring, and I don't have a vendetta against Eka Ea, but I do feel like a lot of the actions the Browns have made this offseason have not gone in Eka Ea's favor. So I don't come at this through the angle of like, I dislike Eka as a player. I'm just simply sharing what the Browns have done and how I don't believe that's beneficial to Eka and his growth on this team. Because you look at the Browns' defensive line, Shelby Harris, Jordan Elliott, Maurice Hurst, 3 of the 4 rotating defensive tackles were free agents this offseason. The Browns brought back 2 of them, despite having Eka Ea, previous third-round pick from the draft before, in the farm system, waiting to come up on the scene and replace one of those guys. And then they kind of doubled down by adding Quentin Jefferson. And if that wasn't enough for Eka Ea, they then turned to the draft and took another defensive tackle in day 2 with Mike Hall, their very first pick of the draft. And then they circled back with Juwan Briggs at the end of the draft out of Cincinnati. So for Eka Ea, I mean, you go back to when the season ended, and he's going into the 2024 offseason, and he's thinking, man, Harris is a free agent. Hurst is a free agent. Elliott's a free agent. Even if they re-sign one of those guys, I'll be bumped up on the depth chart to number 3. Oh no, they bring back 2. Then they bring back a third, or they sign a third defensive tackle in Jefferson, and then they double dip in the draft. I mean, that's just not an ideal offseason for someone trying to move up the depth chart. They just keep placing more bodies ahead of him that he's got to take down in training camp. So, for that reason, I think Eka's unfortunately an offseason loser. Second winner, I'll go with Jerry Jeudy. How could Jerry Jeudy not be a winner this offseason? I don't think he was disgruntled or unhappy in Denver with the Broncos, but he was very happy when the Browns traded for him because that was a team that had been pursuing him for quite some time. So to feel wanted for an extended period of time and to see it actually come to fruition, I mean, how can that not be a bit of a morale boost to yourself? Like, someone out there really wants me. Now, not only did they show that by trading 2 draft picks for him, but then they extended him to a 3-year, $52.5 million contract before he even played a snap with the team as he was going into the last season, which initially I was not on board with that. Now, we did not have the accurate numbers when that extension was first announced, and that dramatically changed once we knew what they were actually paying him. But the former Biletnikoff winner from Alabama, sure, has not reached that pivotal 1,000-yard mark as a wide receiver. Came close in 2022, 972 yards in 15 games. By far his best season in the NFL, 6 touchdowns. He's been relatively available for much of his career. He has had like nagging ankle or hamstring injuries kind of pop up during the season here and there, but that's not really unique to him. But the reason why that Jerry Jeudy's a winner this offseason is because he got that contract extension, right? You look at the top 10 highest paid receivers in football, and sure, Jeudy does not find himself in the top 10, and he's not really even in the top 20, actually. He's just outside of the top 20 at the 23 spot, I think it is, making about $17 million a season. But Jerry Jeudy is the only wide receiver in the top 30 for average salary that does not have a 1,000-yard season. So for him, how could he not be stoked about the offseason? He's definitely sticking out in a way of, man, I haven't actually done the job necessarily, but I'm being paid pretty well, and I got a lot of guaranteed money, over $40 million. So why do the Browns make Jerry Jeudy the only guy in the top 30 for highest paid wide receivers that does not have a 1,000-yard season? Andrew Berry, I don't know if you know this, he's a bright guy, went to Harvard, likes to think ahead a little bit, and he saw the writing on the wall for the direction that the wide receiver position is going when it comes to spending, and how it has quickly become one of the most important positions in the league with how often teams are passing compared to years past. And there were some big extension this offseason's given, like Justin Jefferson and A.J. Brown. But look at guys that are a little bit more in Jeudy's like tier, okay? The Michael Pittmans, the Nico Collins of the world. Like those guys, from a stats perspective, are very similar to Jerry Jeudy over the last 2 seasons. Jeudy has 1,700 yards. Nico Collins has 1,700 yards. Michael Pittman has a little over 2,000. They both have 8 touchdowns. But what's the big difference between these 3 guys that, from a wide receiver tier ranking, are in the same neck of the woods? One's top 10, the next one's 12th, and Jeudy next year is going to be 22nd. So Andrew Berry is betting like he's at a casino table on Jerry Jeudy looking like one of those guys this upcoming season. And if that happens, he does not have to make Jeudy the 10th or 11th highest paid receiver in football because he got that done now. Now, of course, if Jeudy does not live up to the billing, then this will be a massive overpay. But this is the roll of the dice Andrew Berry is making. He is hoping Jerry Jeudy outperforms expectations and he gets ahead of that contract now and doesn't have to give a huge contract out next offseason when he's a free agent. And from Judy's perspective, the guy just got $40 million put into his bank account. Hard not to sign the dotted line when you haven't had a 1,000-yard season yet. So it's a win-win in my eyes for every party here. Now, before we look at our next winner or loser, I was looking at the analytics for the month of June. It's been a slow burn here at the Cleveland Browns Report. My bosses remind me of that every other day. So let's take down the Ravens rundown and subscribers this month. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please go ahead and do so. And let's make sure we take down the Ravens rundown and start the year off on the right foot. My second loser is Amari Cooper. And I don't like putting Amari Cooper here, but it's hard not to acknowledge the fact that Jerry Jeudy getting that extension may have been a bit of a wall for Cooper to get his. So if Judy's a winner, well, that might mean Cooper's a loser because they, as NFL teams, budget a certain amount of cap space to every single room on a roster, quarterback, running back, wide receiver. And a big chunk of that pie for the wide receivers just went to Jerry Jeudy. And there may not be enough for Amari Cooper. Now, the latest reports on the holdout, this came from Brad Stainbrook at the Orange and Brown Report, that the Browns and Amari Cooper and his agent are not stuck on a salary. The Browns are happy to give Amari Cooper a raise. They're happy to give him a 1-year contract extension. But Cooper is looking for 2 years, maybe even 3 years. And that's where the two teams are not on the same page. The Browns have no problem giving Amari Cooper more money for 2024. Cooper wants more years added on to his deal. He just turned 30 years old. He wants some commitment for the last couple of, prime years of his NFL career. And the Browns, at the moment, are not on board with that. So we'll see who wins this stalemate, most likely by if an extension is made. Is it a 1-year extension? Is it just a salary boost for this year? And if so, the Browns won that Cold War. If Amari Cooper gets a 2-year contract extension, Cooper won that Cold War. But the question, like I was talking about earlier, is did the Browns use their wide receiver budget on Jerry Jeudy over Amari Cooper? Browns may not have enough money to go around to feed all their wide receivers, and they got to pick and choose. And it makes you really wonder. I think maybe a good chunk of that went to Jerry Jeudy's $41 million guaranteed, and they don't have the space now to give Cooper what he's looking for the long term. Now, that may be true, but Andrew Berry, when he spoke to the media at the NFL owners meeting a few months ago, sure didn't sound like that. After extending Jerry Jeudy, he still said, look, Coop's a Pro Bowl caliber receiver. He's played really well for us the past 2 years. He's a strong presence in the locker room. We love him. So players like that, you want to make sure that you can retain as long as possible, and we'll work through all that at the appropriate times. Maybe Andrew Berry was just being kind and supportive of his number one wide receiver. Or maybe he really meant what he said about we're going to try and keep him for as long as possible. Or maybe he meant exactly that. They'll try, and they'll try to keep him as long as possible. And for them, as long could be until he's 31 years old. That might be the line in the sand for them. And the Browns feel like, no bad faith here, no lying. That's what we meant when we said as long as possible. Here's our effort. It's a 1-year extension. And that's as long as we want to see Amari Cooper under contract for. Now, I still think that an extension will get done. And I'm hopeful that it could be a 2-year contract extension because I just don't think Amari Cooper is about to fall off a cliff. We're seeing Keenan Allen play some of the best football of his career at the age of 31. Like, I'm willing to believe Amari Cooper, who has been one of the most available wide receivers since being a top 5 pick by the Raiders, can play 2 more years at a high level. So give him a 2-year, $42 million extension. It's a slight pay bump from his $20 million salary right now to $21 million. So you're not resetting the wide receiver market. You're not drastically bumping him up the wide receiver rankings. And for Cooper, he gets a 2-year extension at the age of 30. Those are hard to come by. So what do you guys think? Will the Browns end up extending Amari Cooper? Give me a yes or give me a no down in the comment section. Now, while you're giving me that response, I do want to fill everyone in about the Browns t-shirt combo. 40% off right now at chatsports.com/CLE combo. So if you want to get some new Browns gear in your life, go to chatsports.com/CLE combo. You're not just going to get one shirt. You'll get 2 shirts, 40% off. I put that link for you all in the comments and description of today's video. Third and final winner from the offseason, I'll go with offensive tackle Jed Wills. You probably didn't expect to see this name here. What has Jed Wills done this offseason other than rehab his knee surgery to be a winner? Well, he didn't do a whole lot himself. It's what the team did that involved him, which is they restructured Jed Wills' contract, which was entering the final year of it, and the team added 4 void years to his contract. So, not only did they do that, they also did not draft an offensive tackle. 2 things that really signal The arrow is pointing up for Jed Wills to be a long-term Cleveland Brown. Adding the void years, that is a lot of contract mumbo-jumbo and the cap's a myth and it's fake. I get that. But the Browns added void years to Jerry Jeudy's contract. And then they quickly followed that up with an extension and filled those void years. Jed Wills currently has 4 void years added to his deal. The reason why teams do this is it allows them to spread out cap hits over a longer period of time, right? It lowers the tide for 2024, but raises slightly the tides of 2025, 6, 7, and 8. Now, you can either let those 4 void years go by where a portion of your salary cap, a portion of your pie that you get to spend on players is devoted to someone not on your roster, or you could extend him and still have a similar pie devoted to a player, but he's actually on your roster. It just doesn't make a lot of sense for a player entering the final year of his contract to slap on 4 void years and then let him walk after the season and have the next 4 years a portion of your salary cap going to a guy not on your team. Where, like it or not, that cap space is already carved out for Jedrick Wills in the future. So would you rather have a dead cap? Would you rather have a player actually on your team with that same cap hit or something similar to it? I think the Browns added those 4 void years because they plan on extending Jed Wills, who's going into the last year of his deal. Now, is that a great idea? That really should be answered by, was extending him or giving him void years a great idea? I don't think Jed Wills has shown us through 4 years he is worthy of a contract extension. At best, he has been a 50th percentile tackle in this league. He played very poorly to start the 2023 season. Then he really turned it around after the bye, and it was a bummer that he got injured in that Cardinals game because he was really starting to put together some good consecutive weeks of football. But you look at the career PFF ranks for Jed Wills here. 2023, 64th out of 81. 2022, we'll throw it on screen for you guys here. 2022, 56 out of 81. 2021, 52 out of 83. 2020, 57 out of 79. He's never been even a top half starter in the league. But it's just a numbers thing of like not even a numbers thing. It's more like a business thing. Why have cap space devoted to a guy who's not on your team when you can give him an extension and fill those years up that are already, it's done. Those years are already devoted to a Jed Wills cap hit, and he's not on your roster. Like, you may not like him, but do you hate him so much that you'd rather have cap space devoted to him and him not be on the team? I don't think that's the case for Cleveland. Plus, like I mentioned earlier, the Browns not drafting a tackle, I think really shows that they are confident in their current tackles right now for the foreseeable future. All right, we'll bring on Trizzy Trace to pick a card. Trace, which card do you want to go with?
Give me the 7 of clubs.
I'm going to go with the 5 of spades.
Ooh, I like it.
Okay. You ready?
Let's see it.
Here we go. Five of hearts.
Ooh.
That's tough.
Bad break.
One off. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed our content, hit me up on Twitter at Matthew Petey. I'm always talking brownies over there.